All right, welcome back to the Pro Football Doc podcast. There's my son. Isn't every kid loving Patrick Mahomes? And this is him getting ready for the draft. And this is him excited about the draft. And he stayed up till the end of the draft. And there was a bad dad moment in the draft. And this all ties in to the podcast here. This year, there actually was a big lack of information, because there was no combines and all the different things. And guys were talking about it all the time here. I mean, teams struggling to get accurate medical information because of the modified combines. We wrote about it at Outkick, how it was different. And even at Rappaport was saying on as late as Thursday afternoon before the draft, information was still coming in on some players, and including Michigan's Kwity Paye, who had some heart issues. Maurice Hurst from Michigan had some heart issues too, and it worked out.
Got drafted.
Yeah, and
cool story.
But there was clearly some consternation about his heart issue, and so the little lack of information. How that ties in is that I was a bad dad. I did have a dinner meeting, and he was watching at home, and it's draft's supposed to end at 8:30. Of course, it runs long. He's supposed to go to bed at 8:30. Oh, let him stay up to 9:15. When did the Chiefs draft? They draft 31st. So start getting there. And all of a sudden we're at 31. I'm like, why are the Ravens on the clock? Oops. The Chiefs traded their first pick for the left tackle. And then
tell them that then.
Well, I was like, yeah. So that was a bad dad moment. He was all excited about watching the Chiefs draft. And in the end, there was no Chief draft pick.
What did he say?
He was fine with it. As a Twitter follower suggested that maybe he knew all along and he was just working it as a way to stay up later.
Oh,
that's a possibility. He wasn't that upset about it.
He's happy to have an excuse to stay up late. Yeah.
So with the lack of draft information, look, we did all right on the draft information here, in terms of some of the things that happened. Let's see, Caleb, my son there. Well, let's talk a little bit about draft information, and we'll talk about draft rooms. I thought this was a pretty cool little video if you haven't seen it. But it made me feel old.
In the Baltimore Ravens draft room. It's going to be a different year this year. We're going to have.
If you look at the very impressive video boards and everything that they have, I mean, this used to be magnets everywhere. Instead of, this is what it used to be, either writing on a whiteboard or magnets.
This will be on draft day.
And now everything is completely electronic and so forth. And so brought back some memories to me. I mean, literally, it used to be, there'd be two main draft boards, and everyone would have a magnet, and the magnet order would be changed. The main board would be best available. The board over here would be best available by position. And then you take when a kid was drafted, you take him off of this magnet and you put him on the third board, the order of the draft. And then you take the second magnet from the, best linebacker, best whatever, best quarterback. And then, best quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Then you'd put him with Jacksonville Jaguars. So then you could see the order of the draft and the teams, what they already have. And that's how it was done. But now it's all video boards and so forth. So it makes me feel old that way.
You are a little on the older side.
Good thing they couldn't hear you there. But the draft always reminds me of Thanksgiving. You know why?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay, why?
Because you always sit at the kids' table. We've been together a long time. I've heard your material, love bug.
You've heard the material, but you actually listened to it. I'm impressed. Yeah. Now, for all the years during the draft, there was a main table, about 10 people, head coach, GM, assistant GM, owner, et cetera, a couple of operations guys. The scouts sat in the other room, and the coaches, coordinators, everyone else sat in their own offices. The head athletic trainer and I were at the Thanksgiving kids table in the corner, a little round table in the corner. We weren't at the main table, but we were in the room listening to the adults with their discussions and so forth.
Talk only if you're talked to.
Oh,
Spoken to.
oh, completely.
Yeah.
And
Like
as
the
a-
kids' table,
like the kids, well,
not our house.
no, yeah. But here's the other thing, Kim. I never dared walk up to the best available board or the best available by position board, because if you did that, you would kind of know proprietary information from the GM and the club.
Mhm.
So I stayed away because I never wanted to be accused of leaking information, whatever. I would go up and look at the draft board where the order of people picked. I would go up and see what teams picked where and who they had, because that was a chance to just stay informed. And heck, you could get that off ESPN and what have you. But I didn't ever dare go to our draft board because that would give you hints as to how we valued people. And yes, stay away from trouble. Very secretive process there. So I get a kick out of how everyone tries to claim, and look, I don't know the details of what's happening, but we did, say Caleb Farley, that that the Titans do have a history of drafting for talent despite injury, and despite my saying Caleb Farley had issues. They drafted Jeffrey Simmons coming off an ACL, and he's done fine. So I'm not saying the Titans were drafted poorly, but it's interesting. He came at number 22, and on the betting sites, the over-under was 22.5. So they kind of had it pegged right. And I said, look, he's got issues with his back, and the second surgery, a third ultimately is coming, some toe weakness. But, the Titans got to look at him and decided he was okay. And that's not a bad thing. But I get a kick out of this, and Jason Lockham Forward talks about it. Every team walks out of the draft and they decide that they're thrilled, right? Oh, we're really happy with what happened. No team comes out of there and says there's a problem and the draft didn't go the way we wanted it to. And that's what Jason Lockham Forward talks about here a little bit. But here's what I always say. You're a nurse, obviously. It's like a doctor coming out into the recovery room and telling the family or the patient, everything went perfect, you'll be fine. Everything went great. From an ACL, technically, maybe it's fine, but you don't really know until the rehab is done and they're back on the field. Same thing with the draft. You've got to look 2, 3, 4 years down the road in terms of deciding what a success is. And so everyone declares victory, you're doing well. The Raiders got panned for a bad draft. The Jets got hailed for a good draft. But you really don't know until a few years down the road. And same thing, oh, you finished the surgery and everything went great. Surgery went great. But the proof is in the pudding when you get back onto the field. So I would say you want to be a little careful with that before we judge that too much. All right, next topic that we want to touch on here, and I'm not trying to make a big deal about it, but I just thought it was interesting in terms of what people focus on or don't focus on. This story made very little news. The Panthers are going to turf in Charlotte. They're an outdoor stadium and they're going to turf. And, their logic is sound. The vision is for the building to be a community asset with 2 major professional sports franchises at Bank of America Stadium, more events, high school football, this, that, the other. They figured natural grass wasn't a good thing anymore, and they switched to turf. It makes sense, but I found it interesting that there was no uproar from anyone or even the Players Association. The Players Association made a big deal about adding a 17th game. Which is worse? I don't know. Would I rather play 16 games on natural grass from a health perspective, or play 17 games on natural grass, or play 16 on turf? Now, of course, it's only half of the games, right? It's 8 on turf. The other may already be on turf because only 8 of the games are at home for the Panthers. But in general, is it safer to play 17 games on grass or 16 games on turf? And medically, you might say it's 17 games on grass because of the increased ankle and ACL tears. I used to tell the fellows, it'd be a little rainy or misty. I said, watch, we won't have any injuries. We'll have a lot of muscle strains, hamstring, calf muscle strains, but we won't have the traumatic injuries because your footing isn't there. And it's still shown, even though the new sport grass and sport turf grass and all these different variations. And last year we had a controversy at Giants Stadium, right? Where 49ers tore their ACL, and was there something with the field? And so far they said it wasn't. But it's well known that the current sport grass is better than the old AstroTurf, but it's still not as good as regular grass. There's still increased injuries. So I thought that was interesting that slid under the radar screen in terms of what you're fighting over in terms of health and so forth.
Well, going in the future too. I mean, even our little kids, most of the things they play on is on the turf now.
And we live in San Diego.
I mean, so maybe it's just the way it's going.
Yeah. Well, the baseball field is still grass.
Yeah.
Half the soccer fields are turf now.
Turf, yeah. Football sometimes is turf.
Yeah,
Basketball.
but at the little kid level, it's probably okay. But as you get bigger and so forth is the big deal. But that is still a real concern. So I think that's interesting that didn't really receive a lot of play. Let's talk about something else here. LeBron James. I wrote an article for Outkick. I am not trying to be critical of LeBron James. I am in awe of his talent. But here's what I was pointing out, what LeBron James was saying. And LeBron James was basically saying, and here's the article, and it's on my Twitter timeline, but he was basically saying that coming off his high ankle sprain, that in general, he will never be 100%. And he's 36 now. The wear and tear of the league, he's never can return to 100%. It's like a car is never brand new again, even if you have a door ding or the tires wear a little bit. And I applaud that he's being honest with that. Okay. But Kim, you played sports and you knew friends. I mean, to me, superstars like LeBron are superstars because they have something special physically, but also something special mentally to get to that level. And I'm not saying LeBron James is wrong. It's just he goes the other way. Let's go through some examples. LeBron James says, I'm never going to be 100% again off my high ankle sprain. Now, I would argue medically, yeah, I think you'll be 100% related to how you were 6 weeks ago from your high ankle. But yeah, you're not 100%, i.e. if you're saying I'm 21, I'm 100%. But athletes that I've dealt with,
36-year-old 100%.
36-year-old 100%, sure. But most athletes try and deal in the possible, not the impossible. He said it's impossible for me to 100%. Most athletes try to hide any shortcomings. They admit to age, but they say, well, I'm better now because of age. Very few take LeBron's tact of being, yeah, I'm not 100%, but I'm going to make it work. Maybe that's his self-motivation. But think about this. Tiger Woods never said that his back wasn't 100%. He admitted to some age and some other training things he had to do. And he went through several back surgeries and a back fusion, and he won the Masters. He's got that. He has the killer instinct that show no weakness, right? That's the way he plays it. Michael Jordan was that way. I had maybe this much contact with Michael back in the day in Chicago, was the killer instinct. Even as he got older, he didn't admit to it. His game changed, certainly, but never admitted to it.
Tom Brady's age.
Tom Brady, doesn't admit to anything. Everyone, even young Patrick Mahomes, like his toe was clearly far from 100% during the Super Bowl, and he needed surgery. But all the interviews leading up was, yeah, my foot's fine. My foot's fine. He wasn't trying to make a point of saying my foot is not 100%, but I'm going to make do. Now, I'm not saying that LeBron is doing anything wrong. I'm just saying, and the article, if you read it, was saying that for a superstar of that caliber, most superstars do everything they can to show no weakness. And LeBron actually tells it as it is. So I think
Mhm.
it's very interesting that he makes a point of saying can never turn the clock back and be 100%. But that's just unlike how other athletes do it. So I think that's the only point that I was trying to make. All right, here. You don't get squeamish on videos, you don't care, but we always do some video stuff here. And I'm going to give you some follow-up. We're going to close out unless you have anything else to say on the videos here. A follow-up from last week. We talked about this last week, Chris Weidman. Here's the video. Look away if you are squeamish. This was last week. Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Tib fib fracture, obviously. And if you're really squeamish, don't watch the end of this when he tries to stand on it. And he tries to stand on it and obviously collapses down. Yes, it's done now. So the good news is we said at the time that he's going to be fine in the end and return to fight, and he will. So here is the x-ray. He posted this of the rotting of the tibia. It is normal to leave the fibula alone. This chip is okay because it's underneath the skin. I mean, to make an incision there, to make the x-ray look better, probably is not the right thing to do. I get it looks funny there, but
Might cause pain later.
here's the pre-x-ray, right? Transverse tibia and fibula. This is where he kicked the guy's leg. And this shouldn't cause pain. It will resorb. It will resorb. So it's not a perfect looking x-ray, but it's perfectly fine. And we still say that Chris Weidman will return to fight. Anderson Silva, who in 2013 or 14 did the same thing on Chris Weidman's leg / knee. He was older, but he returned to fight.
Okay, Doc.
Okay, Cosmo. Anyways, so now the video of the day, this day, we always do video, not football, but
It's another.
it's a good result. So you don't have to be squeamish on this one. It's a good result. It probably doesn't look great, but it's a good result.
Well, do I want to see it?
Maybe not because of it's baseball. So avert your eyes, I guess. Of course, I'll rewind it here. So this is Bryce Harper.
Oh boy.
Well, if you really look, the concern is, right, it hit him right on the cheekbone, zygomatic arch. And he walked away. And obviously came out of the game, walked away, and he did not have a zygomatic arch fracture. Here's why.
No fracture at all?
No. Unusual, right? But here's.
It tipped his helmet first.
Yes. Oh, look at that.
Having had a zygomatic fracture before.
Oh, yes, you did.
Mm.
Which, of course, was my fault, but that's a story. You want to tell that story now?
No, it's okay.
No, you don't want to tell that story. You don't want to tell that story of your zygomatic arch fracture?
If you want to.
So, side light here. We're at our friend Kevin Robinson's world record BMX height record in New York. So, literally, he was going 5-story buildings high in Central Park. And Kim, being friends with his wife, was sitting next to his wife because she was nervous. And I ended up helping out Kevin, and he wasn't really getting the height that he needed to set the world record. And he was doing what's called a flare. And by the way, some of this is X Games stuff and so forth in the background here. And I've got a picture of Kevin somewhere in this room here and his world height record. Shut the door, is the
Dog's going bananas.
A flare, which was a flip, and he decided he's not going to do a flare anymore to get more height.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you do a flare, you come off, and the danger point off the ramp is to the side. When you don't do a flare, the danger point is in a different spot. And we never moved the wives or the crowd because we were in the middle of the thing. And unfortunately, the bike came careening, shooting off on one of the failed attempts.
Like as
And,
fast as that baseball.
yes, and hit Kim
The
kind
bike
of in
hit
the
me in the
face.
face.
And it was like July 4th because Kim was wearing a pretty blue dress.
Mhm.
Her skin is relatively white in color, and there was a lot of red, a lot of
My
blood,
whole-
eye and whatever. And of course, the irony of all ironies was that where was the medical bag?
It was under the ramp.
Okay, so before the thing started, I said, I'm tending to Kevin, here's a medical bag, put it somewhere safe, bring it to me if I need it. So Kim's the one that now needs attention when the trailer, where's the medical bag?
Yeah.
We're under the ramp. Oh, where? You were the medical bag bringer and it didn't happen. Anyways, so with Bryce Harper, the reason why I think he was okay is that it does just nick the helmet.
Takes the speed off.
It takes a little bit of the speed off, and then is more of a glancing blow.
Mhm.
You see, it doesn't get redirected
It-
backwards until he hits his arm. So it nicks the helmet, skids off his cheekbone, and then hits his arm before it starts going backwards. If that ball goes backwards because it hit his cheek, I guarantee you that's a zygomatic arch fracture. But it's about angles, and he turned out to be okay. So that's certainly a good thing there. That's why I keep showing it there, because he is fine. Anyways, that's it for the Pro Football Doc podcast. Mother's Day this coming Sunday. Everyone has notice now in time.
You
And,
shocked you.
well, I mean, I'll try and get something else in addition to today's Mother's Day present. Invaluable.
Oh, boy.
I might recommend it.
You might recommend another gift.
Yeah.
I'll have the kids come pick something up. for
Uh.
you. And they'll make a card. All right. You got a whole nother year away from us while we do this Abbott and Costello routine
Mhm.
daily at home.
And we
Thanks.
can do it more often. You want me to enlighten everyone? Sometimes I snap in Twitter and enlighten people.
Well, Periscope's dead now, so we have to figure out
Oh,
Twitter Live or something else different
Yeah.
to make that happen. All right, thanks
happy
for
Mother's Day.
thanks for watching Mother's Day edition of the Pro Football Doc podcast. Thanks for coming on, and I'll pay you for this appearance. Yeah.
Go ahead, finish your,
No.
what are you trying to say?
Well, I mean, half my salary.
Oh, yeah. I am taking it. I have earned it, my friend.
Can we
Earned
stop
it.
at half? No, just kidding.
Careful.
All right. Thanks for watching Pro Football Doc podcast.